23rd, 2014, actually 22nd. Get my glasses on a little bit here. Anyways, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome to everybody. Thank you for coming. The first part of the evening is the standard school board meeting. This is the business of the school board. This is a meeting in the public. This is not a public meeting, to clarify that. And first we'll start here with the notification of posting. This has been posted in local newspaper publications at all the school buildings. The sign out front, and what am I missing, please? Oh, the website, there we go. Next, attendance. With a note in the name, we have everyone here but Mr. Castinger. All right, consent agenda. Review board meeting minutes from August 18, 2014, and special board meeting minutes and closed session on August 27, 2014.
Yeah, I'd like to make one change on the August 27th meeting. The motion to approve the school reception at WGSD, I actually made the motion and Mr. Halton seconded it.
Okay, and that's on Panther, right? So the Schwartz. Hoffman motion. That's it, Lenny?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh, you're a doctor? Okay. Anybody else see any clarifications?
I didn't see any.
Nor did I. All right, hearing none, we'll stand with one revision. Next item, review August treasurer's report. Dawn.
Our bank account summary at the Associated Bank as of August 31st was $7,249,132.85. And when we went through the check register at PNF, there were no questions regarding any of the checks.
Anybody any questions? Thank you, Dawn. And next one, confirm October committee meeting and school board meeting dates. I know we got what, August 6th, committee intended over, excuse me, October 6th.
We're looking at October 6th and October 20th.
What, do you have any issues with those two dates? All right, sounds good. October 6th and 20th it is.
I'd also like to ask that we have a special board meeting to discuss topics of personnel related to administration and communication with administration at a special board meeting, either time at that committee or sooner than that.
They're not kind of open item. I guess I would need clarification on that before I would say I'm not going to leave. I don't know this. You want to discuss that with me later and see what it is?
Sure.
I mean, I'd rather know some details of it.
Due to the topic of personnel administration, I can't do that now. But
Yeah,
it's
that's
up.
fine. And then that works in relay that to Chris and other board members will receive emails on that. All right, then this is on to information items, administrative report.
All right, good evening, everyone. First off, I want to extend some notes of appreciation and thanks to a couple of staff members. First off, to Jane Hager. She did an outstanding job at her new hire orientation process and also getting the one-to-one process initiative going over at Fox River. So she had a very, very busy start to the school year and did a nice job with that. I also want to compliment the whole WGSD teaching staff because they had a very impressive start, having been in all four buildings on numerous occasions the last couple of weeks. The commitment and passion and energy that they're putting into their classrooms to make learning happen is commendable. So thanks to the teachers. I want to thank United Way for getting the Morning Learning Trail installed out back here at Evergreen School. And then we have a super board meeting September 30th, that's next Tuesday. At last check, the town of Waterford is hosting that, but I have not received any confirmation or agenda for that. Typically in the past, at least one board member has attended that meeting with me, and again, that's with municipalities.
Anybody volunteering?
I'll go again. I can go.
I'll double check.
Okay. 6:30? Anything else?
No, thank you.
I've got one question on the Mitchell report. How much time is educator effectiveness taking on this right now?
Administrative time or teacher time or
All or honestly?
many, many, many hours. And I don't have a specific number.
All right.
When we discussed the evaluation last week, that was kind of where I was going with one feedback as we go through the year of how much time that's taking in the process.
Yeah, I'm more interested in making a statement to the state that we are not in favor of the amount of time spending on this. For example, we have gotten a very high grades from the state report card, but yet we're still supposed to prove that we have effective educators. And see a kind of a useless redundancy road. You have a highest in the state, why would you have to prove that you've got that educators that are trained? So I'd like to discuss that at the next exhibit B and C to see if we can do something. Just send a message to our elected officials and let them know how we feel about educators. Any amount of time it's taking. All right. Thank you, Chris. Moving on, principals report. Who's first?
You guys.
I'm excited, that's my first official principal report. I'd like to thank the Trailside community for welcoming me as their new principal. The family, the staff, and the students have been just wonderful, and I really feel fortunate and proud to be the principal. I'd like to thank Mrs. Olenek, and Mrs. Armling for kindergarten night that they had. They did a fantastic job. And I also like to thank Mrs. Gilbert, who, if you notice, outside of our flagpole, she wrote a welcome to Trailside. She painted it on the blacktop square that was out there. She did a fantastic job. It looks great. So stop by Trailside and take a look at it. Thank you.
And good evening, everyone. And a few Whitfield updates. I just want to, I know Chris mentioned about the staff, but I wanted to, on behalf of the Whitfield principal, wanted to say thank you to the Whitfield staff for the open house. Just the hours that they put in preparing for their classroom. It doesn't happen for the 3 days coming back to school, but for all of the hours during the month of August that they were there. During the day and later evenings, weekends, getting their classroom ready. So I just really want to thank them for that. It makes the open house parents' first impressions of seeing classrooms, it just makes such a positive experience. And I also want to thank the kindergarten teachers for the kindergarten orientation, Mrs. Earhart, Mrs. Northrup, and Ms. Gildy. The hours that they put into preparing and having the presentation to the parents to let them know about the curriculum and what's happening throughout the course of the year. I know that parents really appreciate that, so I thank them. And then two assistants I want to thank are Karen Zabel and Tanya Myers for all the work they've been doing to help with the teachers with the math testing. And they got a rapid orientation at the start of school, and they just did what they needed to do, and I just want to thank the two of them for all that they've been doing to support and help the teachers through that process this year.
I'll echo the kindergarten. Night went very well. Thank you to Pam Lobach and Linda Sharp, who is doing a long-term substitution assignment for us. Mrs. Eggers will be back shortly, but we certainly appreciate Linda Sharp filling in. First days of school, I'd like to specifically thank Ann Nicholas, Nikki Kravchuk, and Kate Kravchuk for their welcoming and assistance of new staff. Point out Judy Ketterhagen, who worked with me on developing building procedures and really took the lead on that and has helped our building procedures going into the 14-15 school year. A special thanks to Carrie Strobel for her work with the MAPS testing. Carrie works in our library. And finally, tomorrow will be the first building that does the data work. related to our building goal and other things. And on that team is Jackie Itzen, Pam Lobach, Chris Agan, Shelley Wagner, Kristen Stott, and Lana Fries. All very much appreciate their help.
Good evening. Lots of exciting things happening at the middle school. Lots of things for people to recognize. Hope you've had an opportunity to look at our webpage. We've got it updated with our building goal on there, and then of course our Fox River Community Connecting, Inspiring, and Achieving, which is making our mission possible this year. So we're very excited about that. We had an excellent start to the school year. We, as veteran teachers, decided to go back to the basics. And we need to go back to the basics for the new 7th graders coming in with the technology and things like that, and with some of our staff. So I want to really recognize all of my veteran teachers. Every single one of them has stepped up in some way, shape, or form to help to make the transition with all of our new teachers and our second-year teachers that are in the building. Specific thanks goes out to Mrs. Henskin, who really put together a nice Harry Wand presentation for the new teachers and our existing teachers for procedures. Mrs. Castengren, who really worked on the behavioral piece that you guys had an opportunity to see. And Mrs. Rather, who worked on a lot of different things of tying things together for the group. Mrs. Bergen and Mrs. Kulo took the entire 3 days with the staff and the new teacher and the new students, and we put together a whole series of things with shortened schedules where we would rotate the kids through all the different stations, just breaking things down into smaller chunks and repeating them several times so they got repeated times to hear this. And we received a lot of positive feedback from especially the 7th graders thanking us for going slow, re-emphasizing things. Mrs. Hackstein and Mrs. Nelson, Joanne Nelson, put together the pictures and got them on the web page. So those are just a few people at this beginning stage I'd really, really like to recognize. Just like I said, all of the veteran teachers just really have done a nice job to make sure that the opening days were great for the new teachers and for the new kids. We've got cross country going on right now, and we've got volleyball going on. As of right now, we've got 54 kids, girls involved in volleyball, and I've got 35 kids running cross country. Tomorrow night is the big meet out back. Weather's supposed to be good, no rain. Perfect, because last year we had a little drizzle. We'll have over 35 schools here tomorrow night, so when you're coming home from work and you see the traffic lined up down 83, it's because they're at Fox River. Please stop by, see what's going on. Mrs. Castengren and Miss Hayden are the coaches, and they have this all organized. They actually went to Waukesha on Saturday for a cross-country meet. They both gave up their time to be with our kids on Saturday. So that's just a few of the items that are happening at Fox River right now. Any questions for me or any of the rest of us?
I've got one question. Chris, should we see if we can contact our Scene Point Sheriff to have out in front of the building? I know there's quite.
I have talked to them.
Talk to them?
Yep, they're
Great.
working with them. Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, just a comment. It sounds like things have started great. Everybody is off and running, and things are looking well.
I think so. I think the 4 of us have worked very closely together to make sure that the first days were together, and we had everything in spots, and the 4 of us communicated in weeks there before school, making sure that we had everything consistent between what we were doing with procedures and routines and safety drills and everything. So,
How's the busing been?
I think the busing has been good. I mean, I think, you know, getting kids on buses, kindergartners are, and of course 8th graders who are sometimes like kindergartners, no, not really, but I mean, it's the first weeks of school, so I think those things are coming along well in that area. Mm-hmm.
Any feedback on lunch program?
I don't know. I think not at this point, no. Maybe Jim. I mean, my building, the kids are loving it. In fact, we're getting some kids together at the middle school who want to be part of a leadership group to meet with Tahar once a month. I just spoke with the assistant today, and we're going to have some kids working with them. They just came out with a new menu. The kids are going to be doing some taste testing, putting some input into it, doing some surveys with the kids, so at our level we can do that. So I'm not sure what Mr. B had with the lunch program.
I just want to say that everything I've heard has been positive. The kids are excited that they said they used to be. Everything has been positive. So the kids are, I think, they're taking out lunch now once they see the choices available.
A little happier, our condiments are showing back up again.
We had real ranch dressing.
Wow.
I was excited about that as well.
It's a big move. I was glad to see the students involved in it again. I know they had a lot of input in the past, trying to get it done well, and then also the FDA started skewing things, so it's good to see them back in charge a little bit.
Yeah, it's nice working with the new person that they have hired there. I can't remember her name, Chris, but she's very good out and about helping us, so.
Okay, great, thank you. Anybody else, anything for the principal?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to reports, rec committee, September 15th. Tom?
Good evening, everyone. The rec committee had a big night. We just picked it up at 6 p.m. Susie from the rec department came in and she went over the United Way Born to Learn trail that they installed outside of Evergreen. Anybody who hasn't had a chance to go take a look at that. It's right outside, you can walk through it. Let's see, looks like all the adult employees of the district were offered a complimentary class this fall in the rec department. We also talked about adding a position in the rec department to handle some of the additional tasks as the program has been growing, and also increasing the hours of the existing individuals. We'll be voting on that this evening. We also do have a healthy balance in the rec department, so we wanted to look at reducing the cost of some of the programs for kids to enroll. We also talked about adding outdoor fitness equipment that would go along the trail outside, that would allow kids and adults to work out along that trail. Again, that would come out of the rec department fund. We discussed bleachers. Butch is going to get back to us on that. Just maybe some additional options, or if that was going to be worthwhile at all, given the attendance we have at the different events. We're also going to look at some software in upcoming months to help them out in scheduling the buildings, and maybe look at a user interface for scheduling games and rosters and things like that. And then the final piece we talked about was the security of the buildings. I think we had a healthy discussion on that topic, and something we're going to move to P&C to discuss further. And I think that was about it, unless anybody else, maybe I missed.
All right, we all covered it.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Sure.
Moving on, personal and finance, September 15th, Justin. We called the meeting to order at 7:21. Dawn had looked over the checks, everything looked good in the ledgers. Chris gave a brief overview of the year-to-date budget. As far as expenses versus the previous year, everything was fine there. We had a small overview of the annual meeting, both budget and tax levy of 0%. And then job description for additional clerical position was discussed. I believe that's on tonight for an action item. And Chris gave us an update on the morale climate survey. And we had discussion on the survey and whether to release it ahead of time to some board members. And current scenario is that the board members will be given a viewing of the survey, and then we'll go from there. And I believe that was it. Anybody any questions on that?
I was still looking at October 6th for that date.
Any other questions? Policy and curriculum, September 15th, Dawn.
At policy and curriculum, we discussed the preschools and daycares that were interested in partnering with us for 4K. And at that time, Rainbow Preschool, Today's Child, and Mustard Seed were the three that were interested in. We were still waiting to hear from Way to Go Preschool. Kathy, do you have any? Okay, no update on that right now. And then tonight later we'll be talking about, it's coming to vote about partnering with those local agencies for 4K. And then we also reviewed the district's educator effectiveness plan at that time. And then finally we talked about the 15-16 school calendar and how it relates to winter break and the quantity of student days So we were recommending that we would have classes December 21st and 22nd, and then maintain the 180 student day calendar. Anything else? Anyone else?
No, that's good. Thank you, John. All right, move on to citizen input. Now, just to clarify, the citizen input is not to be misconstrued as citizen input that will happen also at the annual board meeting. So if you're here to talk about an annual board meeting item, there'll be citizen input at that time also. But this is citizen input for the school board meeting. Well, first, let me see. You've got a question?
Do we have to sign in for this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we would like that if you could.
Okay. Can I come up there and do it?
Sure.
Dan,
Yes.
just a question. There was nothing on the agenda for the board meeting for the annual meeting for citizen input. Is that a change in agenda, or will there not be an opportunity for citizen input in the annual board meeting?
It's under new business.
There should be on there. I mean, if there's a motion, it'll be discussion anyways,
Thank you.
right?
Just one.
So then at the end of it, new business is what would be.
Fantastic. Just one clarification. Thank you.
Okay. So if you're here to discuss the budget or give some input on the budget, you probably want the annual meetings, the one you would probably want to talk at. Once the budget is proposed and seconded, then the discussion takes place on the budget. That's it. Okay, with that said, we've got a lengthy list of people, and we try to abide by a 20-minute citizen input period, so we're going to go with a 2-minute discussion for input to the board. If you could try to hold it to 2 minutes. If you hear something that somebody has already brought up and you're in favor of, I mean, feel free to clap after them if you'd like to. We don't necessarily have to hear the same thing multiple times, so take that as it is. But with that said, where's our, oh, here we go. And I don't know if you've got the agenda for tonight's meeting, but I'll just read it over because some people may not have this agenda. They may have be looking at the one for the annual meeting. In light of the number of people who wish to address the board at monthly meetings, the following procedures will be introduced. There are 2 ways to be recognized for citizen input. You can contact the district office to discuss the item with the administrator. After exhausting that channel, you may request the item be added to the agenda or can sign in with your name, which people have done, obviously. Let's see here. At the proper time during the meeting, you will be able to address the board directly. Depending on the number of participants that request opportunity to speak, a time limit to address the board will be provided. The official timekeeper will be a member of the administrative team. The opportunity is provided to you to address the board directly and is not intended to be a one-on-one conversation. If the information you are presenting is directly related to an action item that is on the agenda, you're invited to stay and hear the board discuss the item. If your comments need future board discussion, they will be placed on a future agenda. Criticism of individual administrative personnel or individual board members is not acceptable. You must be aware you are attending an official school board meeting being held in public. It is not a public meeting. Outbursts and statements from the audience will not be tolerated. If they continue, will be held out of order and may be asked to leave.
Since we have 3 to 5, this is done here as our time. Can we go with 3?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so 3 minutes.
So we'll go with 3-minute time allotment, and we'll start with Ryan Egan. And take your time, Ryan, because 3 minutes will start over there.
All right, yeah, I have a long walk anyway, but I hope that doesn't go against me yet. If someone could start humming some music when I'm within 10
This is
seconds.
the first thing. Can you tap on that? Is that working?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got it right here.
You're the timekeeper?
I'm
Okay.
trying to-
Anyhow, all right, welcome to the meeting tonight. Thanks for listening to a couple minutes of comments on my part. I appreciate the opportunity to address the board. And the
Pull her a little closer up there.
I appreciate the opportunity to address the board and the administration as usual. There's great things happening in schools for sure. The year's off to a good start, but there's always, like everything else, ways that we can improve. And no matter how we try to slice this issue of teacher turnover, I think it's clear we've got an issue in the school district, and I want to talk to a couple things that came up in committee meetings this month that are related, and I think trying to get to the heart of that issue. No matter if we say people are happy when they leave Waterford or they hate Waterford when they leave, 18% is just unsustainable, right? And there's a huge cost to this turnover, not just in recruiting, in training new people, not just in the, God bless new teachers, there's oftentimes come with a lot of energy, but sometimes they're learning too. But there's this credibility cost, you know, showing up at your open house 2 nights before your kid starts school and finding out you don't have a teacher. It doesn't show well for our district. My professional experience says that when we have turnover rates that exceed the norm by so far, there's something driving that. Normal turnover, location, geographics, promotional opportunities, that stuff keeps you at the normal type of turnover things. Things that exceed normal, this is based on my experience, exceed normal turnover rates are things like unsafe or outdated equipment, uncompetitive salaries and benefits, and I don't think we have those here personally, or management issues, frankly. Those are the things that really drive turnover. So I'm glad that we're taking some looks at some of those issues deeper. I wish we'd take a deeper look at exit interview data, but we're doing some of that. If we had some of that, we could build a foundation, but we're diving into this survey, and I give the board and the administration credit on that. My only comments are as someone who's done a dozen or so of these things, and in fact today kicked off a global survey of about 2,500 employees, is that I think we're struggling with how we built this survey or how to build it, and really why we outsource surveys. We don't outsource surveys to have people survey employees on behalf of the leadership. We outsource surveys to have that non-biased, non-threatening environment for people to give their feedback, but the survey provider is actually acting on behalf and acting in the place of our leadership team.
30 seconds.
I'm just going to end with a couple quick questions that the board should ask themselves and administration before they take another step further on this survey. And these are the questions I pose to my leadership team as well. Is this process viewed as something that we want to do or we have to do? Is someone really ready to own this process and own the details? Do we understand that administrating survey is the easy part and the follow-up? We have no shortage of surveys in this district. We've got plenty of data. Are we ready to review the results as a report card on management and administration and the board, not on our teachers? If the answer is no to any of these things, don't waste the time, don't waste the money. That's what a survey is all about. I just want to comment, it should be built with management and the board's input. If our provider is saying that it should be non-biased and without input from the administration or the board, jump ship and get a new provider. Every provider I deal with thinks it's essential that we get your ideas and your ideas incorporated into this survey. This talk about a non-biased survey being just something generic that some company throws over the wall at us is a waste of time and money. There's a place for those benchmark questions, but there's a bigger place for people to know that we want to go for the hearts and minds of what's happening in Waterford and what's happening with our people. It's nice to know what's happening in other school districts, but most importantly, what's happening here. It's not micromanaging. This board has micromanaged stuff in the past. I don't like to throw stones, but we talk about dipping sauces at the end of the lunch line, and we talk about all sorts of micromanaging stuff. This is getting involved in something that's near and dear and drives success and performance, not just in schools, but in any organization in the world. That's far from micromanaging. So use the survey provider to provide a non-threatening, confidential way to collect the results. But it's not about bias. That survey should be biased. It should be printed and stamped with the fingerprints of everyone in this room, so those teachers know who we want, that it's you that want to hear from them. It's not the survey provider. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Bill Law. Is that correct?
Good evening. My name is Bill Law. I represent Rainbow Preschool at St. Peter's. We've cared for children in the Waterford area for 25 years. The list of considerations to host the 4K program: we have a state licensed, modern, secure facility including gymnasium, fully functional professional kitchen with complementary appliances and outstanding play areas. We are the only program in the community with 4-star ranking. We have a history of teaching children for 25 years. We have a licensed teacher already on staff, and we're able to provide a children experience with an encouraging to encourage the children to think, question, analyze, and produce and learn based on their individual needs. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next we have Dawn Aaron. There's Aaron.
Yep. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dawn Aaron, and I'm a concerned parent. You all received a letter from me that was directed at Mr. Yoke, and I just wanted to make it public that I'm super disappointed, extremely disappointed, disgustingly disappointed in the turnover in this district. And I'm even more disgusted that we are replacing tenured teachers with less experienced ones. And I'm not knocking it because my son has a long-term sub and he's doing extremely well right from the get-go because Mrs. Kravchuk has set her up that way. But I can't imagine that if Brenda Pendleton were still in the building, how much further ahead that other class would be. The test scores were great, and that's great. I'm super pleased to be a part of this district, but I think that when you have that kind of turnover, something has to be done at this level, and you are all ultimately responsible for that. So I think I'd just like to see something happen. I understand that there has not been any sort of annual review for Mr. Yoke. You guys are our elected officials, and I believe that is your job. So I'm asking that that be completed in addition to the surveys. I've been very fortunate to be able to volunteer in Evergreen over the last couple of years in my son's class and throughout the building. I see how the staff react to you, Mr. Yoke, when they walk through the building. They tense up. The kids don't know you. When the principals and the teachers walk through the building, the children high-five and say hello to the adults in the building, and you are the exception to that rule. I had to show my son a picture of you for him to understand who I was talking about. That's a little bit of a disappointment because when you come in the classroom, it should be that you can walk in and out and people don't notice that you're there because they're uncomfortable. So that's it. That's all I have. I just wanted to make my opinion known to all of you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Keith there?
Good evening. My name is Keith Aaron. I am also a parent of a Waterford Elementary School student. My point of talking tonight.
Turn the mic right straight towards you.
Better?
Yes.
Tonight I would like to address the board and specifically Mr. Yoke in regards to the mass exodus of our teachers from this district. In the business world I come from, if I had an 18% turnover rate, my employees heads would be rolling. It is not tolerable in business. We've lived in Waterford now for 8 years, and in that time, we've become friends with many Waterford students, parents, and teachers alike. And I have personally witnessed teachers coming home from school crying because of the hard working conditions, the policies that are being established by you, Mr. Yoke. You cannot rule out school with iron fist. These are educators. We should be putting our students first. It's got to stop. That's all I have to say for right now.
Thank you. Next we have Sue Dasher. Excuse me, sorry for that. Heidi Jones.
Good evening. My name is Heidi Jones. I'm a full-time working mom of 2 kids who attend Evergreen. I have actually written a letter to all of you as a very concerned parent. I am one of many concerned parents like those behind me who are very concerned about their children's education. And I'm one of many concerned parents who are speaking out, demanding some changes. After reading the letters that were made public from 4 fabulous teachers who felt the need to leave this district based on their fear, among other things, that's appalling. Why are we letting this happen? I know a few of these teachers personally, and they're far from vindictive, and they're far from unreasonable. I had a lot of other stuff written here, but I think I'm going to skip a lot of that. I think you'll hear some other angry people later. But I just want to let you know that I work as a manager. I'm in leadership for an IT department for a very large local healthcare organization. I have a number of people reporting to me. Employee engagement is not only something on my own performance review, but it's also something that all of my employees are asked to participate in. We work together. We trust each other. We communicate daily. We troubleshoot issues together. Our work environment is such that we all want to succeed. Based on that, as a leader at the organization, we've all been asked to read Stephen Covey's book, The Speed of Trust. I highly recommend it. And to end it, to quote Mr. Covey from his own book, simply put, trust means confidence. The opposite of trust, distrust, is suspicion. When you trust people, you have confidence in them, in their integrity, and in their abilities. When you distrust people, you are suspicious of them, of their integrity, their agenda, their capabilities, or their track record. It's that simple.
Now we have Sue Dashner.
Hello, my name is Sue Dashner. I am the mother of 2 children that attend Evergreen Elementary School. And like so many parents, I am a very concerned parent. This morning as I was on my way to work, I heard the song, "No person is an island." No teacher is an island either. And I think that is what is happening in this district. Teachers are beginning to feel alone, they are scared, and that's not right. Teachers are some of the hardest working people I know. I feel that they are required to do more with less. I'm wondering, are there even prep times anymore? I see teachers in the parking lot directing traffic, helping students. I know that they are in the lunchroom. I know they are on the playground. When are they prepping and preparing for teaching today's lessons to our children? In my opinion, the teachers are no longer being rewarded or praised for their efforts. Rather, they're being criticized and put down. You know what that does? It kills self-esteem. Whether you are an adult or a child, if you don't have self-esteem, nothing can or will be accomplished. The school is a community. It is a place where ideas are shared, teachers and administration and even students support one another. Most important, all of us when we are in a school building, we are the role models for those children. It amazes me how many master teachers this district has lost. Master teachers are irreplaceable in my opinion. Teachers are team players to the fullest extent, and currently I feel like we've lost the team. I just feel that they're scared, they're unsure what is expected of them, and I should say, it's gotten to the point I think that it is so bad, their only ray of light is to leave. It hit home with me this year, especially when Mrs. Pendleton left, because I do have a student in 2nd grade. He was assigned to the teacher that is still here. We came to open house. He got to meet a teacher. His friends and parents, it broke my heart to see their faces when they had no teacher to meet that night. We went home. My boys were excited, delighted to find out who their teacher was for the year. That made them comfortable, they could sleep at night, and the first day of school was a success. we need to change something so that these master teachers stop leaving our district. The change is needed. This is our children, our future.
Scott, no, when we took your last name, is it Tayaki?
Pretty close. Hiya.
Tayaki?
Good evening. Everybody hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. I would like to start it off first with thanking all the former teachers, aides, and support staff that Waterford Graded School District has had. I'd like to thank them for everything they've done for the betterment of our children. These are the people that in 10, 20, 30 years, our children are going to be able to tell you their names. These are the people that outside of their immediate family are going to have the biggest impact on their lives that they will ever have. Yet the actions and inactions of this administration and part of this board have not expressed that. There have been many statements and sentiments made regarding the situation that this district finds itself in this forum and many others, and I'm not going to echo those right now, although I could not agree with them more. What I would like to comment on are some comments that were made by a couple people approximately 4.5 years ago when two people were running for the board that they currently sit on. Mr. Schwartz, 4.5 years ago, you made a comment that the primary issue is taxpayer input and said that Waterford needs more of it. This room is filled with taxpayers that want answers, and they're not getting them. Mr. Jensen, you stated you were running because, and I quote, our administrator needs to be reined in, unquote, for taking actions the board has not voted on, and if elected, you would review the administrator. Enough is enough. Something needs to be done. I don't have the time or inclination to wait for surveys, to wait for results that we already know the answers on. I hope and I pray that everyone here has the wisdom and the guidance to make the right decisions. And I'll pray for that every night to hope that everything works out. I want to thank you for your time.
Valerie Greger?
I'm going to be reserving my input for the annual meeting.
Okay, thank you. Jamie Chronic?
Good evening. My name is Jamie Chronic. I'm the mom of 3, and 2 of my children attend Woodfield. Tonight I'd like to address 3 related issues. I'll call them the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start with the good. I'm happy to see that my daughters are off to a very good school year, with teachers who care for them as if they were their own, under the guidance of a principal who openly states she has 403 children. How reassuring to know that when my girls get to school each morning, they will be greeted by a smiling face that honestly has their best interests in mind. And I feel blessed to have these teachers and their principal in our lives. Unfortunately, this easily segues into the bad. As a taxpayer and a parent in this district, the number of recent teacher resignations alarms me. In fact, it is downright unacceptable. I have read the letters that 4 of the departed, highly rated teachers have written, and I've also read the survey results. I can state with the utmost certainty that the problem is not a statewide issue or even a regional issue, but a WGSD issue. The relationship between the district administrators and the teachers is, in my opinion, irreparable. I do not want to see any additional teachers resign from their positions because they will be more valued, more respected, and better led in a different district. I do not want to have the uncertainty that my children might not have a high-quality education because this district cannot attract and retain the most qualified individuals, which leads me to the ugly. Members of the WGSD School Board, your position is not always an easy one, and I'm sure no one has ever made the promise that it would be. Your job is to ensure a quality public education for the children of this community, To do that, you need to find the most appropriate individuals for each part of the school district. If one part is not working, changes need to occur. I urge you to do what is in the best interest of our students, to make the tough decision to rectify the problem that has been so clearly identified, which will ultimately allow our teachers to do the job they are so passionate about without fear and intimidation. My hope is that you will realize your responsibility to the taxpayers, to the teachers and principals, and most importantly to the children who attend our schools. Thank you.
Next, Amy Kuzar.
Good evening. Like others before me tonight, I'd like to express my concern about the number of teachers leaving Waterford. My primary concern surrounds the education of my children. There are a lot of demands being put on students and teachers today. I understand this both as a parent of 3 school-age children and firsthand as a high school teacher here in Waterford. Our schools naturally are not the same as they were 10 years ago. However, when tenured teachers are choosing to leave our schools, not leave careers in education, I see a problem. According to the recent letters written by teachers who left Waterford, they left not to better themselves economically, not to move closer to home. From what I understand, many of the teachers left because they felt they were being treated unfairly, scrutinized unfairly, and made to feel like their voices didn't matter. It is hard enough to be a teacher, but to teach in an environment of intimidation is unjust. We should be building each other up, not tearing each other down. Bill Gates said, "Your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning." I encourage you to take Bill Gates' philosophy to go to your unhappy customers and use them as a source of learning. I would hope in hiring an outside service to survey the staff that some effort would be made to include the voices of those who left. I feel that these potentially unhappy former employees might be a great source of learning and understanding for the district. They might add a layer of wisdom that a teacher new to the district just won't understand. Finally, I realize change takes time. I'm wondering what steps you as a board can help create to start the foundation for change in our school climate. I've spoken with quite a few unhappy parents. I've heard whisperings of current teachers considering leaving if something doesn't change. Teachers seem to be put on improvement plans, so I'd like to see what kind of improvement plan you can come up with for the district. What steps can be put in place this year to keep our most prized educators? How can you show them that they are valued, that you hear their voices, and that you support them? How many more effective and beloved teachers do we need to lose in order to make change? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're trying to, Paul Schimmel, sorry. I couldn't read the end of it. Just state your name, that way she has it.
Paul Schimmelfennig. Paul Schimmelfennig. The question is, what is wrong with the Waterford graded school district that is compelling so many teachers to leave? The answer begins with the school board. Over time, fear and intimidation has ruled the school board, whether it be individuals or as a group. Ruling by fear and intimidation has become pervasive in this district. Because of this, it kind of goes down to the district administrative team as well. The district administrative team seems to control principals and teachers through fear and intimidation. They micromanage teachers to a point where they are not allowed to be professionals anymore. They lack basic people skills, giving very little positive reinforcement, no matter how much the students and teachers accomplish.
All of this creates a caustic teaching environment that is making the Waterford Graded School District an undesirable place to teach. What do we need to do? First of all, we the members of this community need to demand change. This change needs to occur in short order, or we risk losing another 20% of our teachers in this district next summer. Second, the change must occur at the district leadership level. Without changes in district leadership, the deterioration of our school district will only proliferate. There are no other reasonable options. Depending on exit polls to improve the climate in Waterford Graded School District is a remedy that is 3 years too late.
Good evening, Matt Cronick. I would like to just revisit a timeline on this issue that so many people are talking about tonight. November, December 2012, a group of teacher leaders initiated a survey, a climate survey was distributed to over 100 teachers. The results were tabulated using SurveyMonkey or something similar, and the results were given to the school board and the superintendent. April 2013, 3-4 months later, Mr. Yoke asked that group of teachers, those teacher leaders or some group, re-administer that survey, in a sense legitimizing it. It certainly must have felt that it was a good instrument or good enough instrument that it should be done again. The results were given to the school board. There was similar results as the first time, very poor results, very poor climate survey. Most people here probably already read that. August 2013, through public records request, I released up to about 15 exit interviews. They were made public and shared with the board. I believe probably a lot of board members maybe had not even seen them at that time. October 2013, it was discovered that no written evaluation of the district administrator had ever been reported. This is a violation of state law, it's a violation of school board policy, and it's a violation of the district administrator's contract, all which state that a written review evaluation is to be performed. There was one done, I am told, in 2014 in January under the leadership of Bob Castro. Summer 2014, district administrator states at a committee meeting that it is no longer doing exit interviews except for face-to-face. In other words, nothing is getting written down. There is no question set that the employee who's leaving fills out. It's all word of mouth between the administrator and that employee. Obviously, then what is shared with the board is completely up to the district administrator. Summer 2014, board hires 2 outside agencies to administer a climate survey, and it is noted that over 1/3 of the teaching staff have now left in the last 22 months since the first survey was done. Now, this past week, I received an anonymous letter in the mail. Its authenticity has since been verified, and I would like to share with you tonight. This letter is from 2007. This document accuses someone of certain problems, certain issues, like having a Jekyll and Hyde personality, accusing and complaints without citing the source, threatening disciplined letters, entering a classroom while teaching to threaten disciplinary action, threatening insubordination for expressing a professional opinion that is different than this person's, a feeling of discomfort to be alone with them in the room, etc., etc., etc. And the only good thing that I can say about the discovery of this letter is that none of you were on the board in 2007 when it was given to the Waterford Graded School District Board. I'll give that to you now.
All right, thanks, Matt. Next, we have Carol. Is it James?
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address you again this evening. There are 3 areas I'd like to touch upon this evening. first is regarding the discussion that was held to delay implementing the 4K program. Tonight I was pleased to hear Dawn report that they had met with area preschools, and I would hope there are no more delays. When implementing a 4K program, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Basically, there are 4 things to do. You have to select a curriculum, and several excellent ones have been written. 2, you have to establish sites for the program. If established preschools in Waterford would like to be considered, they should apply as long as they have the credentials required by DPI. The first being adequate physical facilities, and second, a teacher with DPI certification in 4K. The elementary schools in Waterford will then provide the space for the other programs. Third, Waterford School District would have to interview and hire DPI certified teachers, and lastly, order materials for the classroom. Very basic steps. The second area I would like to address is the manner in which classroom teachers are treated in this district. I have been in the classroom as both a grandparent as a volunteer and as a substitute teacher who has subbed in several program support areas last year, and I've had the opportunity to work at all grade levels. The teachers I observed were doing an outstanding job, and I would stop to tell them so. The typical reaction from the teacher was, "Thank you. I'm so glad someone appreciates what I'm doing." And when I stood with shock and awe, I would ask for clarification. They would say they felt threatened and were not sure they would be employed the following week. They all appeared to be living under the sword of Damocles. These teachers have proven their abilities as demonstrated on the test scores of pupils in this district. It's insulting that these professionals are working under these conditions, and they do not deserve to be treated in such a punitive manner. It should come as no surprise that teachers are resigning on the day of open house. My final area addresses the need for transparency. I do not believe the board is always getting all of the facts. Last spring I attended a board meeting where there was a discussion regarding school choice students who were to be given consideration to enter our district. One of the areas of concern was allowing students with special needs to enter the district as an additional cost associated. Finally, it was narrowed that the identifying area of concern was identified as speech only. I was very surprised when I heard the administration point out to the board that the district had been forced to hire an additional speech therapist, which incurred additional expenses, so that fact should be taken into consideration before other students were accepted. I, in fact, was that speech therapist who was hired. I was hired to work 4 hours a week during the last 5 weeks of school. It was a total of 20 hours. It was not a substantial financial burden to the district, and the board should have been told it was a temporary circumstance, or it should not have been mentioned at all in the consideration of accepting children into the district. Thank you again for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, George McNair.
Good evening. I'm going to address the board tonight on an email I'd all sent you about my concerns with the upcoming employee survey. I just wanted to follow up and say that I still believe that it's important that the board does not be involved with it, that we let this private organization who are professionals at giving surveys to give the survey, and that way we can get a true result of what the climate is. And I want to thank Tom and Dan and Doug for your very thoughtful responses to my email. I was a little disappointed that I didn't hear from Dawn, and I hope that was just an oversight. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Next, Carol
First, I'd like to thank you all for your service on the Waterford Graded School District Board and for the opportunity to speak tonight. While I share the concerns of many who have spoken tonight about the teacher resignations, I'm here tonight with concerns regarding differentiated instruction for students in the Waterford Graded School District. Mr. Jensen recently stated that it is not the school's job to get a kindergartner who comes into the system reading at an 8th grade level, reading at a 9th grade level by the end of the school year. While his example is extreme, it does put into question the intention of the school with respect to kids who are achieving at a more advanced level. Mr. Jensen argued that the idea of adequate yearly progress for each student is some crazy notion out of Madison and not necessarily a goal that the Waterford Graded School District shares. I find that appalling. Each child should be expected to advance every year. If it takes differentiated instruction to achieve that, so be it. Teachers are held to account for the scores of all their students, not just the ones who start the year at the low end. And let us not forget, those high achievers help boost the scores of the entire district, giving you all something to boast about each year. For Mr. Jensen to suggest, and other board members to only politely disagree, that all kids aren't required the opportunity to advance says a lot about the state of our district. Yes, our district has been one of the best in the state, but like a coach who takes over a talented team, if you can't continue to recruit well, you can only ride on someone else's coattails for so long. The goals for the district have to be to attract talented staff to a supportive and innovative environment, and with that, attract families who want the best education available. That combination is what will continue the tradition of a great school district and a great community. Continuing to chip away at services offered to the students, support provided to the educators to get those students to advance is a recipe for disaster. You are not doing all you can to attract the best and brightest teachers when you're chipping away at the services that we're going to provide to those students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carol. Let me just add one thing since you're personalizing out to me.
It was your comment. I'm not personalizing to you. It's what you said.
You said my name about 10 times.
I said your name twice because I was quoting
Okay.
you from a meeting.
Here's a comment.
I thought it wasn't supposed to be a question and answer.
Okay. If you would listen to what you read, one more all person, that person leaves, okay? If you listen to what my statement was written on the back of here, it is not necessarily a two-way communication. That does not preclude any board member from stating anything they would like to. So with that said, if you would have stated my entire, what I had said that evening, I said this is a public school, it is not a private school. You do not have the same rights in the school district to demand of the school board everything you want for your student. We have to take all students into account. You are not in order. Have a seat.
Excuse me, sir.
One
I
more
don't
time.
need educating.
Have a seat.
No, I'm not going to have a seat. You get to
Okay.
address me, I get to address you.
I'm sorry. Officer, give you a score girl, please. I am not. Listen. Okay. We're not going to delve into pandemonium. Thank you for your time. Again, this is a school board meeting and a public. This is not a public meeting. All right? All right, we'll move on. Craig Lepisto?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I hope as we hear this and see what's behind me, that you guys don't dig your feet in more and you really look at your leadership style. You really look at what you said for the past 2 years and meetings that were less attended. You know, you guys are educational leaders, not educational bullies, okay? You're the person who should be working for are not taxpayers. They're your K through 8 students that come to your school every day. That should be your #1 priority. Not the taxpayers, anything like that. You know, when I read something about you talking about the free and reduced lunch program, and you said that the kids who get free and reduced lunch should stand on a separate line. That appalled me. That you would have your crew that you're working for isolated. Either you don't understand child development or you just don't care. And I hope my 2 students who go to Evergreen never meet you and never have contact with you because I worry for their safety. That's how much that kind of statements disturb me. Again, like I said, I hope you guys don't dig in. You're educational leaders. You should be supporting your teachers. You should be a resource for them, not a source of fear and intimidation. I've been in education my whole life. Both my parents were educators. I was blown away by the first open house I went to. I've never seen parent support like this in a school. And you guys are not taking that and running with it. That school report cards were amazing, amazing. And you guys should realize what we have here and work with it. Don't run into the ground, please.
I'm gonna use my outdoor voice. So if you can't
Please speak into the microphone.
well, it might get a little loud. Okay, no, I'm not saying I'm gonna be loud as a negative thing, just letting you know, I wanna make sure everybody can hear. So I just want to introduce myself here. I took a couple notes. I want to stay to the point. You've heard a lot of different points of view. You know, people are upset. That's very obvious. Just want to let you know, I'm coming from an educational background. I'm in my 17th year, and I work in the state's 4th largest public school district. I'm a school administrator. I run a school of 454 students myself, so I'm speaking from experience here. I got to tell you, when I taught, one of the biggest things that I've learned here, especially now in my new role as a school leader, is that we need to look at the data. Okay, we live in a data-driven world. You look at the movement towards DPI, educator effectiveness, it's something that has been buried down not only on me as administrator, but on all the individual teachers here in the building. It's a huge amount of work. So the work conditions are already difficult. So when we take into consideration all that goes into this, the self-reflection, the SLO, and I don't know how many your district's requiring, we require 1. You look at the mid-year review, you look at the data collection, you look at all the different things that teachers have to do. I'm going to come back to the data. Because the thing is when I taught, if children were dropping my class in mass numbers comparable to the number of teachers that have been leaving this district, I'd have to do something that I asked you all to do a month ago, which is to look in the mirror, take a look at what you're looking at, and do some self-reflection. So if kids were leaving my classroom, I need to do some self-reflection. What's wrong with my practice? What am I not doing to meet my student needs? So I need to ask you all to do the same thing. Look in the mirror. What are you not doing individually to meet your constituents' needs, our students' needs? Because you're talking about our students' future here. Also, I talked about using data to make informed decisions. You gave exit interviews, you gave some surveys, and you took all that information, and away it went. Don't be afraid of the data. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, the data show that people are not happy. People are upset for a variety of reasons. So instead of running from that, or turning your back to that, or dismissing that, embrace that. Use it as a learning moment. That's what we encourage our students to do when they encounter difficulties. We use it as a teaching moment. And I can tell you, Mr. Maltov does a good job of that, and I commend him for that. The reason why we need to look at the data, and we use that to drive our instruction and our practices, is because we should be differentiating individualized instruction for all students. We should be using data to planning relevant whole group lessons. We need to use data to set our learning targets. We need to use data to drive our students to push themselves, such as the MAP scores. They have a projected RIT growth score. We want to push them to hit that projected RIT growth and go further. Why? We want to close the achievement gap. We want to increase our student achievement. Evergreen Elementary. I sent Mr. Maltov an email the other day. I didn't hear back, but I get that because I'm the same way. But 0.9 away, it's true, but we're 0.9 away from exceeding, far exceeding the top category of the state. I share that with you because that's something to be celebrated. That tells you that the people in our buildings are working hard. The proof is in the pudding. It's right there on the state report card. So instead of having this Gestapo-like mentality and approach to our teachers and our students, celebrate these things. They need to be celebrated. Last but not least, I simply want to state that change is there's one constant in life, and that's change. There's one thing I can guarantee you in life, is that something's going to change. So, with that said, it's time for a change from the top to the bottom in the best interest of our children, because at the end of the day, I don't know why you're in education, but I'm in education for our kids.
Thank you, Damon. Next, Joan Beck.
My name is Joan Beck. I went to school when my teacher had dark hair or blonde hair. And when my kids went to school and had the same teacher, and they did have some of the same teachers, they had gray hair. And it would be nice to bring that back. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to go really light because my dream was I wanted to be a teacher. And that just didn't work out, and I took care of children for 28 years that were before they got to school. My second dream when I was in my 50s was I want to be a lawyer, because I know I love to argue, and some of you know I like to argue. So I had my 50th class reunion Saturday night, and I told somebody, you know, I wish I would have been a lawyer. And they said, oh, you would have been a good one. You would have made a great prosecuting lawyer. And I went, you know, that would have been good. Well, I am not a lawyer. I do not have a bar. I know some great lawyers. Jim Feddick is one, and I'm sure those policemen know Jim Feddick. I will say this. Looking out here, I'm older than most of the people sitting here, and they have a case. So please listen to them. Now the reason I'm up here is because I was here last time in the spring, and some of you may have remembered. I represented that night the American Legion Auxiliary. I directed a question to you. I want to, and the group wants to, and we want to have men from the Legion come into the schools, show the kids how a flag is folded. We wanted to hand out flyers. We didn't want to buy them until we got the approval from the school board. I met with Mr. Yoke, did I not? It was in the spring, and I was at a funeral that day, and I took time to come from that funeral to come here. It was around May 7th, I believe. I gave you the information I had from the Historical Society I'm in, and I asked you to copy it, and you were happy to do that, and I appreciated that. But you obviously, sir, are busy doing other things because you have yet to get back to me. And this is something that we want to do for the children. And I'm not yucking at you, because if I yuck at you, you'd be pinned against the wall. It's not about that. It's just, I ask you to do something. I go on Facebook, and I read about people that are probably sitting out here that want you to resign. And it's like, I just want an answer. Can we please put patriotism back into our schools? Yes! Yes!
Thank you, Joan. I know we discussed it, we heard about it as a board, so I'm sure Mr. Yoke will be checking to see what he did, relay that information back to you. So, with that said, any more that would like to address the board? Eric, you want to come up? Yeah, can you just sign the record on Derek?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Derek Mahan. I'm a high school choir director here in the district. My daughter's also in 3rd grade. I just have one question. I noticed on the action items to come, we are accepting the resignation of a board member. I'm just wondering, don't need an answer, but I'm wondering if there's a plan in place to put another board member in place. I'm worried about when we have ties within the board, a 2-2 tie, who then makes that decision to break the tie. That's all.
Thank you. I saw one more hand. You want to say something? After you're done, make sure you sign so that we have the records here.
Will do. Dean Beckley. Moved here about 10 years ago, and the company I work for, a large communications company, global company, gave me a choice of moving anywhere I wanted to go. So I settled for Waterford, strangely enough, but the reason we came here was for the school. Had a great reputation. Everybody raved about it. My biggest concern is the reputation we're getting now. Schools are great. We can't deny that. But it's the reputation we're getting of a workplace. And you're not going to get quality talent when you have a reputation for, whether it's a company, whether it's a school, any place. If it's not a great reputation, they will not apply. We will not get those applicants to come across anyone's desk. So we're going to be kind of left with, I don't want to say what's left over, but it's going to be a real problem very shortly. And if changes aren't made, it's going to get really, really bad really, really quick.
Thank you. Let's go start over here first.
Hi.
Just one more thing before you go. Well, I just saw your hand. After that we'll cut it off. We've got to go after me.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Schwartz. I'm up here just to say thank you, Mrs. Markle. You have gone above and beyond with my son and with my daughter. Amazing to get the phone calls from you, the support. My daughter had double knee surgery. You and Mrs. Mitchell there helped her do it. Thank you. And Doug's doing great. I really appreciate it. You're a gem. Thanks.
Hi there, my name is Jonathan Goss, father of 2 students here in Woodfield. And really, first wanted to thank you guys as a board. I know this isn't a high-paying job, but by any stretch of the imagination, you give up your time. It's a lot of effort, I get it. This obviously likely isn't very easy for you, so I get that. Also like to thank Matt. As a traveling business person, I don't have the opportunity to come to all of these meetings, so because of this, I actually get to see what's going on. There had been some comments. There had been some comments about whether or not the parents cared because they weren't showing up at a bunch of meetings, as I've heard. So I'd like to say we do, even if we can't be here every time. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Geelig. I'd like to thank the teachers who are still here who supported my daughters, Mrs. Earhart, Ben Vitas, Ms. Geary. Fantastic teachers. I'd like to see I would like to see them here when my last daughter comes through school, okay? So all I can say is, having been here for my first meeting, having watched the videos, there's a lot of themes that are really powerful, and they're tough to ignore at the end of the day. There's themes here about issues with trust. There's themes here about issues with accountability, not accountability going down, but accountability coming back up. Whether or not you all are being the right servants to the teachers and to the community, not necessarily whether or not the teachers are doing their jobs. So I think that's an interesting theme, and then obviously turnover is a huge theme too. I really hope, as other people have said, that we find ways to deal with that. I'm interested in the outcome of the climate survey. Not sure why we need to do a 3rd one, but if that's going to help resolve the issues, then I'm all for it. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Make sure you that being said, conclude citizen input and move on to action items.
I'd like to just respond a little bit.
Tom?
Based on the number of emails we've received as a board, the comments I've received personally, and obviously all the remarks today, I felt I needed to prepare some thoughts and share them with you this evening. A big reason I ran for this position was because I felt there was a great deal of turmoil in this district. I was concerned about the things I've been hearing about staff morale and the number of teachers leaving. I knew what this meant for my children who attended this school and that will be attending these schools in the future. While I've only been on the board a few months, my biggest observations are that many times I feel the issues we're facing are either rationalized away or we're not working together to uncover the deeper causes of these problems. I will add, though, that I don't feel this is being done with ill intent. I feel that many of the board members were or are making decisions with the information that is presented to us by the district. The mistake being made is just taking these issues at their face value and not digging deeper into the problems. You cannot rationalize staff resignations by saying it's the same across the state and then later find out that resignations are 2 times as high here as the closest next rate of resignations. You cannot revise job descriptions without reposting them when the result is teachers leave your district to get the same opportunity elsewhere, despite us being told otherwise. You cannot change the exit interview process simply because you didn't like the results, and then be surprised when highly respected teachers decide they'd rather conduct theirs in public. These are just 3 issues that Dawn and I have questioned since I've taken office. I just ask that my fellow board members look at these with us and maybe question these some more. I don't think we can rationalize these issues or simply accept the information presented to us from the district as fact. Again, we need to dig deeper as a school board and question things. While I applaud my fellow board members for taking the initiative with me and them to conduct the surveys, hold these focus groups, I get the sense that sometimes we feel we're looking if there is a problem, rather than acknowledging that there is a problem. I guess ultimately my hope is that everything we've seen and heard in the last few weeks, in the last few months, in the last years, painted a clear picture that there is a problem here and it's our job to work together to fix it. Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move on to action items. Take action to accept resignation of a board member. First, I would obviously discuss who that board member is. That we know would be the motion. So,
A motion to accept Bob Castleman's resignation from the board, effective immediately, due to health issues.
okay, second.
I'll second that.
First by Dawn, second by Doug. Discussion. I just want to say Bob has been a great asset to this community, a great asset to many things in this community, whether it be from Love Inc. to working at the school boards for years now. He's always kept in mind what's in front of us, which is having the best outcome of our school district. Not individual students, not individual teachers, not individual administrators, but what's best for the school district. And if it came to hard decisions, Bob was right in there with everybody else making the hard decisions. Sometimes you're not liked as a school board for making those decisions, but sometimes you have to do it. But Bob is a great asset, and unfortunately Bob no longer has the ability to be on the board. We thank him for his great service and his many years of commitment.
I hope at a future meeting, or maybe he's able to, or a family member to represent him, we can recognize him also.
I definitely second all that, and for the limited time I got to work with Bob, it was wonderful, and you can definitely tell immediately when Bob wasn't there, he really set a cadence, and he'll be missed. So I just like to thank him for his service and wish him the best.
Any more discussion?
Yes, he was a great asset. As you said, you could tell when he was at the meetings and when he wasn't. I'm going to miss him a lot.
That being said, take a vote. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. There'll be a 4-0 nay. Next item, take action to approve job description and position addition for recreation department.
Make a motion to approve the job description for the recreation to increase the hours of the recreation coordinator and add a part-time youth sports coordinator.
You want to put in a limited hours on that one?
There was 10 for the part-time sports coordinator.
Is it 5 on the?
Increased our recreational director from 30 to 35 and assistant from 20 to 25.
And then 10 hours for the youth coordinator.
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'm only going to add that I'm going to abstain from this one. I had a family member who expressed some interest in this position, and I don't want anyone to think there's any funny business.
So.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. It'll be a 3 over nay, 1 abstention. You better say Tom, just in case you can't hear that. Next item, take action to approve job description and additional clerical position.
Also moving out would be a maximum of 4 hours a day, I believe.
First by Doug.
If the board please use the microphone because it's really hard to hear back here.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Second by Dawn. Any discussion?
I just wanted to comment that I feel that we should have looked for the library media specialist position and/or had further discussion with our staff member who left in order to retain that. And then I wonder if this position would even be of need. So I am opposed to this position.
Okay. And I'll add it, say, I think the two things are not mutually exclusive. I mean, I agree with your position on getting more input on the library aid side, but that doesn't preclude us from having these temporary part-time hours. It's an at-will employee, so it's not a contract position. So we can remove this position at any point.
My suspicion is once you add it, it's hard to get rid of it because you always seem to fill it with things, but that's my opinion.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I do share a bit of Dawn's concerns on this one that we talked about in committee, that once we had, a lot of it hinged on the movement of other personnel, at least the thought process behind it. And since that hasn't necessarily happened yet, I do share Dawn's concern that once you do add a position, the likelihood of it ever going away is probably nil. But if the administration says this is something we need, I'm not opposed to it.
Okay. Any thoughts, sir?
I think maybe in 4 months we should revisit it just to see if they are working out or if we can eliminate the position. That way it's not a job that's going to be there forever.
Okay.
Put that on the agenda.
I can agree with that.
Any more discussion? In that case, all in favor of the motion to approve the job description for additional clerical position, that is what, 4 hours?
Yes.
For 4 hours. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
So that'd be 3 for, gone against. Yeah. Moving on, take action to approve outdoor fitness equipment purchase coming out of rec department.
I'll move to make a purchase of the recommended equipment for the United Way Trail funded through Fund 10 at a cost not to exceed $7,000.
I'll second.
First by Dawn, second by Tom. Discussion?
I just think it'll be a great addition to that trail and something for all community members to use as they go through that trail and are maybe here for their children's sports events or those things.
And just to clarify, this is coming out of the Fund 80, correct? Fund 10, okay. This is for rec department purchase.
Partially and community use.
As much as we can, yeah. No, that's what I'm saying, is the money's coming from rec department.
It's not, it's coming from the general fund.
Really? When did this change?
Well, actually, I was under the same impression of you that would be coming out of the rec department.
From the rec department, that's why we're purchasing it.
The rec department made the recommendation, but there isn't enough of a time study to prove that.
Could you speak up?
There's enough time study to prove that we would be able to justify the expense of the fund.
Okay, then I would have to change my thought on that. I'm with Tom. I mean, my last recollection is we discussed this coming out of Fund 80, which would be the right?
It was discussed coming out of Fund 80, but as was mentioned at committee, it needs to come out of Fund 10.
Yeah, I missed that.
I did too. I know we talked about recess and gym class and things like that and having to look at it. I guess, what steps would we have to take to actually figure that out? Is this a complicated, time-consuming process, or what do we need to do to determine if we can keep it a rec department purchase?
We would need to do a time study. I don't know the length of the time study to see how much was actually used by the rec department versus kids on the study site.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any more discussion?
So if we purchase it, can we do the time study and then still take it out of the other fund and reimburse one then?
It would be better to take it out of Fund 10 and then have Fund 10 reimbursed from Fund 8.
Okay, would be better to do the time study first?
We need the equipment to do the time study, unfortunately.
Is it proportionate? So if it's 10% school, 90% community, then 10% comes out of.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would say that I would not be in favor of taking out of Fund 10 general budget. The purpose is to spend down the Fund 80 balance. Since we have a sizable amount in there, this Fund 80 amount along this trail with the intent on that. So I would not be in favor of that. If you did a time study and there was an 80-20 mix, or rec was 80 and school was 20, I think. Any other thoughts?
Can you repeat what you said, Chris, regarding the Fund 10, the Fund 80? We're answering that question of payment from Fund 80 to reimburse Fund 10 or vice versa, what you were
You
recommending.
make a payment out of Fund 10, and then if the time study finds that there's enough funding, or what percentage town is funding it, Fund 80 can reimburse them.
Excuse me again, we can't hear you back here.
Can we add that to the motion?
Then you can modify your motion, sure, you can just let this one fail and push it to committee and talk about it. What's your preference?
I'll modify my motion that go for the recommended equipment to support the United Way Trail funded through Fund 10, cost not to exceed $7,000 with a time study with a follow-up of reimbursement from Fund 80 if that's possible based on the time study.
Okay, so let me just clarify. Because we are the first and second, you're actually modifying your motion. So we would have to have a second to modify the original motion.
Also move.
Okay, so the motion now, the modification is what we're voting on, not the original motion, okay? So all in favor of modifying the motion to state it's coming directly out of Fund 10, and after the time study will be reimbursed back to Fund 80, correct? All in favor of changing the motion to that, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so now on the floor, it's Portal Lene. Now on the floor, we have a motion to take the money for this out of Fund 10, have a time study after the fact, once it's installed, and refund Fund 80, or refund Fund 10 from Fund 80 based on the time study analysis. That's the current motion. Okay, any more discussion? All right, I would say that I would be in favor of something of that nature, not strictly out of Fund 10. Any other discussion? All in favor of taking the money out of Fund 10 and then doing time study and reimbursing from Fund 80 to Fund 10, signify by saying aye. Aye. So it'll be a 4-0 issue. All right, next item. Take action on 4K partnership with outside preschool daycare providers.
I'll move to make a motion that we partner with the agencies that have indicated interest for 4K, so that there will be some school site based, and then also those agencies, as long as the parameters of the partnership are there, and we would want to make sure that the number of students enrolled, I don't know how to word that, but that we have a max number there so that it's a financially well in doing that partnership.
Did you get that, Lene? Let's wait till Lene has her tape back, because that's a long motion. Okay, can you restate that, please?
Sure. I'll move that we partner with the outside agencies in our community that are interested in 4K, so that we have school-based and community-based 4K programs, as long as the number of enrollments that we had set in the agreement continue to be financially wise.
Does that make sense, Lane? Okay. Second to that? Anybody?
Sorry, I know the financial part of it is a big part, but do we want to add that they meet the full contract or expectations?
And that they meet the full agreement.
So we're clear.
Yep.
Everybody knows.
Okay, just to clarify, what you said. I'll comment after
I second.
Okay, first by Don, second by Tom. So the comment is then, so what you're saying is, if you want to clarify what you're saying, so we're going to have in-school 4K and outside 4K. And who will be maximized? That's what I'm trying to clarify.
That would be based on the enrollment when we do the registration.
Well, what I'm trying to narrow down is that the school classrooms that will be maximized until they go to outside agency? Will it be the outside agency that will be maximized to make them viable? That's what I'm trying to clarify.
I would see it as the registrations would dictate that.
Okay, so I don't know that that says anything other than no provider will know until the day of school or something.
Well, we were talking about doing registrations this fall, which would give us an understanding of those numbers.
Okay, but if an outside agency has 10 students and you have opening for 10 students in the classrooms, are you going to ask 5 other students or 8 other students to go to the outside agency? Or are you just going to say to the outside agency, we don't know, and we won't know until the first day of school?
Well, we would base that on the fall, when we talked about doing the registrations this fall, because they would need to be moving forward with curriculum and partnering with us in that development. And if we don't have that at this time, we would need to say no, because we don't have the enrollment at this time.
I understand that, so that's clarification. So what we're saying then is we will allow people to sign up for the outside agencies that are currently listed with us in good standing and have followed all the criteria that has been done. And for whatever dollar amount we're claiming, we'll be paying them. And if there's only 8 students or so signed up, after the fall registration, they'll be given notification that you only currently have 8 students signed up. It's your responsibility for the viability of your program. We're not guaranteeing any more students. If you want to take it on, the viability of your program is under you, but here's what you have to provide. Are you saying that we will not allow them to take it on if there's not 15 students?
When we haven't set a number to pay them per student, I think that that's a difficult thing to answer.
Okay. I mean, that's what we're kind of doing right now. So I don't know that we said anything other than we wanted to work with an outside agency, but we haven't set parameters. So like, I mean, can't agree to something that I don't know what it even is. Can you make a clarification of the motion of this? I'd like to go along and approve what you're saying, but I can't approve it saying that it's just wide open. There's no rhyme or reason.
I wouldn't say that there's no rhyme or reason. I would say that I was saying that it has to make financial sense, and we haven't decided as a district, we haven't been given a number that makes sense to pay these outside agencies per student, which makes it difficult to answer that. So it's not.
Okay. All right, any other comments?
Just one question. From what I've seen now, we're only having one daycare that's in Wasca is going to want to do it. The other two said they declined at this time. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thoughts now?
What did we narrow down?
I don't know that we have. I'm trying to.
Well, I see where Dawn's going because I think we still do have the cart a bit before the horse because we haven't established a dollar amount per student.
Understand.
So I understand what you're saying with that, but I guess we're presented with the vote, so.
Yeah, my thought is so you have a fall number assigned, right? And you can have a committee meeting and come up with a number that you're going to pay for this. What I'm saying is if you only have 8 students registered for today's child, or St. Peter's or something. So anyways, If you only have 8 students registered, you know the dollar amount. Is your letter you're sending to them going to state you only have 8 students at this point, here's the dollar amount, this is all we have registered?
Well, essentially we will, because that's what the contract's going to say. It's going to say you have to have X number of kids, and if not, then it's not viable.
And so at that point, they have a certain number of days, let's say 15 days to respond and say, I will not be accepting this. That gives the school administration the ability to say, we need to do something with these 8 students that are not going to be going. It doesn't preclude another organization from having a full staff or a full amount of students. Kathy?
The biggest thing that would be helpful from my view is if you could determine whether or not you are indeed going to, because you haven't made a motion and passed that, if you're going to have partners, because then we can move to registration. And the other key thing that we keep talking about is do the students have to attend the preschools or the 4Ks that are within their elementary busing in regard to keeping that cost down for transportation, especially in the half day, you know, in the afternoon. So to me, those are the key things in a motion, whether or not we're going to have partners, and then whether or not we're going to stay within the, you know, transportation of that elementary school, the 3 different elementary schools, whether those are going to be the options, unless students, of course, write to the superintendent and ask to attend somewhere else and provide their own transportation. So I think those are the key things, and then we'll be able to move forward on registration. And working further with partners, finding out how many they can house, how close are they to filling the requirements, beginning those conversations.
Okay.
All right, so we want to trim that up a bit and just say we're going to move to work with outside partners based on the guidelines established by the school district.
Yeah, it's kind of wide open.
Well, sounds like we have a lot of wide open questions.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm trying to narrow it down to this one here.
Well, the other question I would have is, let's say we have people that are in Evergreen's district, the class is full, but the class at the daycare is not full. Are we going to force them then to go to the daycare?
Good question.
Personally, I would say that we would treat it like we do now with the Title I program, and that if you want to utilize the school facility for the pre-K, then this is where it is. That doesn't prohibit them from then, you know, contacting one of the other providers and,
I agree.
you know, driving over there and saying, oh, this
That
would
was
be a
one of the
great
questions
fit.
that I was asked over this weekend, because I've been talking to a lot of
Sure.
people on it, was, okay, you know, it's full here, are you going to force me to go to a daycare rather than going to the school? And I didn't have an answer.
Okay, and this is where this motion needs to be narrowly focused to give the administration the information they need to move forward. So I believe we have a first and a second, correct?
I think we did.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Right.
But, so, that's where we are right now. So the problem is right now with that motion, as I see it, I couldn't not vote for it, it's too broad ranging. I can't vote for something where I think if we only have 8 students in our class in the school, and we have 11 students signed up for today's child, why would we have paid for a full-time teacher at both locations? So we either have to maximize one or maximize the other, and I could never vote for forcing a student to attend a private outside agency and not come to the school that they think they're going to, if they choose to go that direction. So if we have 20 in our class here, are you going to ask somebody to move to an outside agency? I guess that's what I'm looking for clarification for.
And one of the things we're probably looking at, and using Matt's figures, right now we have 130 students in our 5K. Using what he said at 75%, that would mean roughly 100 students that we would be having in our 4K next year. Maybe we should amend it that we fill ours first, and then I'll go to the partners.
I really would like to let the community members of the children choose the location first and register that way, and then grow from there.
Okay, your thoughts on that,
I
Tom?
would agree with that, Dawn's last statement.
Okay, so if you have 7 students, an inside and an outside, you're okay with it?
I'm agreeing with both of you.
What's like
That's what always happens.
I'm
Very
okay with
agreeable. The problem here is I think these are questions we should have been
We don't
talking
have,
about in committee. And
Yeah, we have discussed that.
we don't have all the facts, unfortunately.
Right, and now we're gonna vote on it, and I know what Kathy's saying, you want, okay.
And we need to move on this, yes.
And I agree with you, we have to decide that because it's taken far too long to do that, it's crazy.
Put it this way, as it sits right now, it's in motion, and the school will make it happen with our school facilities if we don't come up with an agreement for an outside agency. Now, our question will be is, if we only have 15 students who want to go to outside agencies, they should have that ability to do that, but we don't have the ability to fund 2 agencies at 7 students. And it won't be profitable or manageable for the outside agency.
How do you know that, that we don't have the funds to do that?
You know, we don't have the funds.
How do you know when we don't know how much we're?
I don't intend on voting in favor of a class with only 7 students in it.
But do
We've
you know
never had
the
that in the
numbers of
history of
what
our
that
school
would
for
look
7
like?
students.
Do you know what that would look like number-wise?
What's that?
If we had 7 students, what it would look like number-wise? Because I don't.
What are you talking about? How many students will be in there?
But I think
But
probably.
you're saying that we couldn't run 2 with 7, but how do we
Well,
know
I'm saying I
that?
will not vote in favor of having a class with 7 students.
I think what Dawn's trying to get at, what she's trying to make is, we're gonna get X dollars for doing this program.
Yeah.
Which is considerable.
Mhm.
If we look at the dollar amounts, and we may say, you know what, we could run a class with 2 kids. But ultimately, in the big picture, we're still gonna make out because of all the additional funding we're gonna get school-wide. I think is what the point is trying, I believe.
Okay.
I'd be happy to make my own points, but
Sorry.
the fact is, we don't know the dollar amounts to decide financially. We haven't made any commitment to those things. Tonight, our job is to decide if we're gonna partner with the outside agencies and if we're gonna have students within our boundary, those boundaries. Those are 2 things. We aren't deciding numbers because we don't have the financial numbers to make those decisions.
Okay, I don't know if you need a financial number to make a determination that it's not feasible to have 2 students in a classroom.
Now you're going from 7 to 2.
I brought up 2, I didn't bring up 2.
I understand, but that's where we're headed. I mean, I feel like we're nitpicky, and the point is, are we
No.
gonna
What you're
partner
doing-
with?
You're making a motion. This motion will determine the 4K in the school district.
Right, and I've made a motion, it's been seconded,
Okay.
and then Kathy indicated that we also need to talk about within the boundaries. So that's where we're at, but now,
But that's not in your motion.
Even though it's broad, what I brought up earlier, what is the real problem with saying, yes, we're gonna partner with outside agencies based on the guidelines we set up as a school district? I mean, then that encompasses whatever Kathy comes up with, or it moves us forward to the next step.
And the guidelines are 18 students, is what the board decided on, so they would have to have
That's what
18
we said.
Or
students.
it leaves it open
but
that,
we did talk at the last committee that we could.
In fact, I was the one that brought that up. The problem is, what gets me is 2 out of 3 companies that have WASP don't want it.
You don't want to do it.
You know, that's,
The largest agencies in the area do not want to do it.
that already give us, preschool and after school for the older children.
I would like to do it if we can come up with a clarification of the motion that will allow me to vote for it. But I can't vote for unlimited spending of any sort for any number of students anyway, which is what we currently have. It's not viable for our school district to have empty facilities and then pay for an outside agency to have an overflow of students. It's not viable for us to have 2 students in a room and pay a teacher. It's not inexpensive.
true, but we're also talking a considerable sum to offer this program.
Okay, wait, we also have considerable sums that we bring in for all the students. We wouldn't run and nor have we ever run a classroom with 7 students in it.
No, I agree. The only point I'm making is looking at the dollar amounts.
I know.
Isolating that piece.
This is why I'm trying to get a determination of something we could actually work with. Okay. I mean, then we have a motion and a second. We'll just go forward, call a motion and vote on it. I just don't know how to vote for something that's unlimited and no clarification. You just want to partner with an outside agency with no directive to the administration of what to do.
Do you feel from my motion, Kathy, that you know what to do, or do you need clarification?
Hey, I don't know that I should answer that.
It's loaded, I'm sorry, but I want to make sure you have direction, because that's our job, that you can have direction from our motion.
I think the question being raised is,
Once we get the information from the registration, which we can always come back to, is are we going to fill our classrooms first, or are we going to fill others first?
Can't hear back here.
Can I,
Okay, I'm gonna repeat that to the audience.
okay.
Okay. I think the question that's kind of stirring here is whether or not when the registration comes back, we certainly could wait till the registration comes back, but the question is, are we going to fill our classrooms in the district first, or are we going to fill, our partners? So it might be something that we want to look at when we get the information back. I'm fine with that. I just need to know if you're willing to have partners, and if students are going to have to go to 4K in their elementary school. And then I think we can begin to work
So
on
it
that.
sounds like you would need an amendment for that section.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I'm looking for, something to do with boundaries.
Can I make an amendment then? That we fill the district's classes first?
This is only the First Amendment, when it should be.
What, who? And that they be within their own school, district, if they're Evergreen, they go to Evergreen, if they're Trailside, they go to Trailside.
So the amendment motion on the floor is that the students fill the Waterford Graded School District room first.
And then we
And then after that, they go to, or be allowed to go to an outside agency. And with that, they go to, if they're coming to the school district, they go to the school in their neighborhood school, which they would normally go to in kindergarten.
Yes.
Okay, but I don't know that that clarifies life either, because here's my scenario. You have 23 students at the day's child. Who are you going to tell of those 23 they cannot go to the day's child?
Or they can split their class morning and afternoon.
So a lot of things to be thought of, but
It's been a hot topic, like I said. I've looked into it. I don't have a clear answer.
Yeah,
I visited 3 daycares just to see what their facilities look like. But we have to move on this because we need to get going.
okay, so we have a first on the
And right
floor.
now, using his figures, which thanked him for that 75%, which is sort of a benchmark, we are going to have at least 100 students.
Yeah,
So there might be enough to go around to everybody.
Sorry to interrupt you, Doug. I need a second of the motion before we discuss. So Doug's motion was to fill up the classrooms here first and then allow students to go to outside agencies. I'm not quite sure how that works because then you're limiting. Yeah, okay. That is discussion, by the way. And they have to go in their area to their 4K of their normal school they would go to for kindergarten. That's first choice.
I'll second the motion, so
Have
we
a
can have
first-
discussion.
First and a second. Any more discussion?
I guess I have a hard time, I understand what you're saying, Doug. I just have a hard time knowing how that would play out with registration. In that, all those come forward that want the school buildings first, and then we won't really know the real numbers. So my opinion is that we need to have the registration and then have this conversation again.
Well, I think we
To
can
talk about that process, or to allow the administration to do it from there. Once we say we're partnering, they can take it from there.
I think we can revisit that then, but we need something to get going on. And unfortunately, like we've done a couple other times where we haven't had all the facts and we were going to do our due diligence from then on, and unfortunately here we are again, jumping in, is it half full or half empty? That's why I figured this would be the sort of a compromise where we would, fill our rooms first and then partner with the outside agencies. And with 100 students or more, I think we'll have enough to basically fill everybody. And looking at the registration, we can always come back and then modify it if we have to. But at least they have something to go by now and to get going.
Okay. I would agree.
I definitely agree. It just, I can foresee the tricky issues. Okay, now we're one student over in our schools, so then, okay, now do we draw more out of the ones that would be going to the preschools to fill up another classroom, and let's say Evergreen? Does it become a first come, first serve to where you're gonna be, race to the...
And more importantly, because they would just sign up with their first intent of where they want to go, and then some of the administration has to take the time to compile it all together.
Yes.
Because you won't know as you're signing up at Evergreen that you'll go to Evergreen. You can put down your first choice as today's child, and then put down Evergreen as the school you're going to. So after all's done, you would have to do?
Of all the schools in the state of Wisconsin that do this, which there are a lot, how do they typically handle this aspect of everything, of enrollment and?
Enrollment, if they have both on-site and off-site locations, they do ask for what's your first choice, what's your second choice, sometimes what's your third choice, and then letters go out as to what options you've been given, according to the numbers and what's going to work.
Okay, and they will fill their schools first and then?
And typically, yes.
Okay.
So with the motion that Doug just made, saying that the schools would be filled first, how do you foresee that registration looking?
Well, I still think you have to send the registration out and let the parents put their different choices in, and then we'll see where the numbers fall, and then see whether or not people get their first choice, second choice, whatever.
Right, well, in my opinion, this is obviously working in other districts, and if that's how they're doing it, I'm comfortable moving forward with that thought process.
Okay, any more discussion on that? So this is the amendment to the original motion, and Doug, your amendment was to have it fill the Watford Greater School District building first, and all students would go to their school that they would normally go to for a kindergarten.
Yes.
Is there anything else?
Our outside agencies have to be full hours.
Okay, does everybody agree that's what the motion was? Second. Okay, any more discussion on the amendment to the original motion? We're voting on the amendment, not the motion. Okay, all in favor of the amending the original motion, signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion as it is on the floor now is we're going to have a fall sign-up period. We're going to have list down first, second, third choice, and the administration will go over those and then send out letters based on that to let people know. Now, my only question would be, and I'll hypothetical obviously, if you have 20 students that want to go to today's child, you limit it to 15, how do you segment out who is not going to today's child?
People either do according to who registered first, or they just pull randomly.
Okay.
Or it could be who is getting wraparound care there.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yep.
Typically,
Okay,
whoever's getting wraparound care there would get first
That
option.
would make a lot of sense.
Okay, so that makes sense. Everybody in agreement on the board?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're stuck with a motion, which is Doug's amendment. And what else do I have, including yours? I don't want to preclude anything. Is there anything, nothing's right there? Okay, so we'll have a fall sign-up, list your first, second, third. There'll be a tabulation by the administration. Letters will go out to everybody involved, including the other preschool facilities. And if they have pre-qualified and they have the ability to receive students, they will be sent a letter with how much they will receive per child based on whatever committee meeting comes up with that PNC, right? That should be finance. So finance will review that once a year, send a letter out, and let the outside agencies know this, how many students you'll receive and how much you receive per student. They'll have how many period of time to respond. You can come up with that committee, I'm sure. 2 weeks or something, something normal for the administration to do something. Is everybody in agreement? Okay. It's a long-winded motion, Lene, and I'm sure you'll slow it down, but I think we've had enough discussion on it. All in favor of that motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have a 4-0. So we will have a 4K system that will use outside agencies after tabulation and justification.
And transportation within the elementary setting.
Yes.
Whether it's in district or outside of district.
Well, I think, why don't we just take the secondary vote here right off the bat, since it's part of this and wasn't the original motion. Would you like a motion for that? For the transportation? No? Doug, would you like a motion for that?
We need to look at the registration and see what we're going to go from there.
Okay.
I can see in the area, but the transport out of the area, no.
Here's the problem is we have to let the bus companies know in advance what's going on. So if we leave this until January, February, we can't put them on a bus. Well, we're gonna have a lot of angry parents, and then of course, the issue of a half-mile radius or 1 mile radius. You know, who's gonna come from across the street? It's a dangerous intersection. A lot of questions.
We can't really register students until we know that.
Okay, I make a motion that we transport them within their areas where they go to regular kindergarten, but we do not transport out of the areas. You know, like if you're in Trailside area, you don't bus them to Evergreens because they want to come to Evergreens.
Okay.
That would be like right now, we have students that sign up that they're actually in one school district, but they are in one school and they want to go to the other. It's the parents' responsibility then to drive them to that other school.
It's a lot of discussion, a little lacking on motion. So your motion is that we provide transportation to students in the 4K system attending a outside agency in their school district area for their individual elementary school.
Yes.
Okay. If it's cross-border and it's a different provider, the parent would be in charge of the transportation.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
First by Doug, second by Doug. Any more discussion? Oh, sorry. First by Doug, second by Tom. Sorry about that. All right. Might I add this? I have heard from parents that said for a 4-year-old child to walk all the way from Fairview or walk all the way from across the street is a long distance for a 4-year-old child as opposed to a 5-year-old child. I know 1 year doesn't sound like much, but it is. So might I request that somebody think about modifying the motion to include 4K students be at a closer radius than what we currently offer to the 5K students. We're currently at what first?
5K?
No, yeah, 1 mile? So we're at 1 mile of current. So the question is, does the board want that? Do we need to moved forward with the bus company too on this? Or would you like to modify the motion to add this in?
I would have issue with that.
Either would I. You know,
Okay.
if they come in the morning with the other kids, it's one thing. When you drop them off, you're going to have to drop them off closer to the home. And
Okay.
the bus stops are in a lot of cases.
In that case, I'm looking for a motion from somebody.
I'll make a motion. We have that.
Doug would like the motion, and what radius, Doug, would you like the motion for?
Half mile, depending on the area. If they're in a dangerous intersection, it might be less. You'd have to look at the bus routes, unfortunately.
Okay. Would you like to second that?
It is open-ended again. You have to look at the bus routes, but, you know, if you have an area where there's a lot of traffic and they're walking a half mile, that could be kind of dangerous.
So I'd like to say this to you, Tom. We could have a motion to say that if it becomes a safety issue across the street, Fox River Hill, right? Fox River Hills could be the least. So we could say Fox River Hills is the least distance radius-wise which you would anticipate that you would want.
Yes.
That's a very busy road to cross for a 4-year-old. So we could have a bus go over there. I don't know what the exact radius is, so you don't have to worry about that. And maybe a quarter mile, maybe 0.38 miles. But you can motion that, and then we would have the ability just to say from across the street there, we'll have kids picked up.
What's your second ever? What's your second and I've never met.
Well, we don't have, you don't have a second to this.
Second.
Well, wait a second. You don't have to second, Doug, if you're going to change it completely. You can just change it now, Doug.
You could just include mine, if there's a safety issue, so it have to be closer.
I would modify those to say that we provide transportation for our 4K students.
Okay. Can't modify yet, just a second. I don't have a second to that. I said if Tom doesn't want a second, Doug, Tom can make a whole new motion on it.
So why can't
You can make a motion, but you said you wanted to modify the motion. So either you have to accept his motion and then modify a new motion. You know what I'm saying? We don't really have an accept the motion on the floor.
Then I make a motion that we provide transportation for our 4K students, no matter where their residence is.
Okay. Would anybody like to tackle that one? Even if they're across the street.
The options there.
Okay. I would like to motion transportation for every 4K student, no matter where they live.
All of our schools are
I understand that, but if you live south of Whitfield and you're right next door to it, you're within stone's throw distance of Whitfield, you're saying that you'll give them transportation to the school from their front door, no matter where they go.
I don't know all the streets, so I'd rather go with this. I mean, I can't name other street roads.
Does anybody want to second that motion?
Would that include opening roll?
Okay.
It would include that then, unfortunately.
Okay, how about I do this for you since we're not moving forward here? I would like to motion that we approve busing for 4K students from within their district to the school that they will be going to for their public or private school, correct? And no farther distance than the crow flies from here to Fox River Hills and whatever that, what's that main cross street over there? What's the main one we're driving to? I could name Sam's Heidel's house, but I don't want that in motion. So anyways, from a centralized location in Fox River Hills is the farthest distance I would like to see 4-year-olds walking to school. That's my motion. Would anybody like to second that?
Why don't you write it down?
I'll write it later for you.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion?
So you think from Fox River Hills they could walk?
I just motioned that I'll be offering them busing from Fox River Hills to the school here and or to their private school that's within the district of their immediate elementary school, which is Evergreen Elementary. Therefore, this covers Fox River Hills, covers Fairview, covers numerous places. And it's probably about 3/10 of a mile. Okay, we have a first and a second. Any other discussion?
I guess the one thing I'd like to add at this point is I would like for us to come up with a list of this stuff so we could have already talked about it in committee and had a chance to really think about it before we were sitting here and have to basically vote on it under the gun without a lot of thought.
Do we need to motion this month, or can we take it to committee's transportation? Okay.
Okay, wait a second. First and second on the floor. Running business. So, do you want to remove your motion? I have a second. I didn't motion. Remove your second?
No, we'll go with it.
Okay, the motion is staying there. Okay, we have a first and second. Any more discussion? Hearing none? All? Yes.
The only piece I would add is this is for 4K students only.
This is for 4K students only.
So if we have a 5K sibling.
That's correct. This is for 4K students only, does not include any other students associated with that family. All right? Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of supplying transportation to the 4K students only, not any other siblings, and within the radius from here to Fox River Hills, which is approximately 3/10 of a mile or thereabouts, which would include Fairview in this also. All in favor of that, signify by saying aye. Aye. We have a 4-0 on that. We have transportation for the 4K students. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Next, take action to approve individual contracts for teachers and aides.
Also move.
First by Doug.
Second.
Second by Tom. Any discussion? Would you like to listen down, Chris? Do you want me to?
Elizabeth Bartlett, teacher, Cynthia Caldei, Melissa Adams, and Word.
Okay, so we have Elizabeth Bartlett, second grade teacher, Nicole Ward, Fox River part-time aide, Cynthia Calvetti, Title I preschool aide, Melissa Adams, Evergreen part-time building aide. Have a first and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye.
Yes, I said aye.
That would be a 4-0 the name. All right, last item, take action to approve extension of bank fiduciary institution contract with current vendor.
Also move to continue with Associated Bank.
Second. First by Doug, second by Tom. Any discussion? Got a very good partnership with them. I think it's a very good working relationship. Any more discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. You have a 4 over nay? All right, any other discussion for the business?
I just want to go back to the beginning, the meeting when I asked for us to come together with a special board meeting to discuss personnel as related to administration and also communication. And I think from the letters we received, things we reviewed, all of the people who showed up tonight, I think that speaks to the reasons as to why we need to continue to meet as a board to keep things moving forward. So I bring that back to the board to get their available dates to do such a meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, motion for adjournment, somebody.
Also move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Second by Doug, second by Tom. Any discussion?
I would prefer that we would set a date before we would adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the adjourning signify by aye.
I'm fine with setting a date.
You have a motion and a second. In order to go outside that motion, which is on the floor currently, you either have to call the motion and let the motion die, or you have to make a modification to that motion by amending it and thereby having a vote on the amendment.
So I need to recall my motion.
Did you put a second?
I put the second.
Okay. So he would like to withdraw his second, Doug. You have an issue with that? Okay, we cannot adjourn currently. So, I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion that we meet on October 2nd, special board meeting to discuss Monday, October 2nd, it is our committee, to discuss.
October 6th, you mean?
Sorry, October 6th, to discuss administration and communication from administration. Thank you. It's not worded as I wanted it, but.
Will we have enough time after committee meetings to discuss all that, or should we have all it on a separate date, like on Thursday that week?
Okay, currently Dawn has a motion. Unless you want to modify your motion.
Second.
Tom seconded Dawn's motion to have this meeting on that date. Okay, any more discussion? All right, so I do not have a problem having a meeting, but I need to know what the meeting will be in order to post an agenda for the meeting. That's why I asked that I talk to you, so that I can find out what you would like, so I can approve an agenda for a special board meeting. But it's well within your rights, and any board member can call a meeting. So therefore, that's why I would be in favor of the meeting, because it's your right to call a meeting at any point. So, any other discussion?
Just to clarify, the meeting is for discussing personnel related to administration and communication.
Okay. The issue I'll have is I'll have to figure out whether that is a public meeting or a private meeting, and currently I have not heard that. And you can't really discuss some of it, obviously.
Right.
So that's why I asked, I understand that, that's why I asked at the beginning of this meeting that we discuss that, so I can figure out if that's going to be public or private, or what it's going to be. So, but, be as may now, we've got a request for a meeting on that day. So, we have a first and a second, any more discussion? Dawn made a motion, Tom seconded. Right?
Yes.
Any other discussion? All in favor of having a meeting on October 6th for the purpose of discussing and
Personnel.
personnel,
Administration and
related to
communication.
administration and communication. We'll have to clarify whether this is public, private, and or other.
It'll be open and closed session.
Okay. Once I figure out what's on the agenda. Okay. All right. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. That would be a 4-0 vote. Now, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Also move it one more time.
Second by Doug, second by Tom. Deja vu, anybody discussion? All in favor of adjourning, signify by aye.
Aye.
We have a 4-0 vote.